a slightly wandering attention, hosted by Eric Tivers, ADHD and autistic therapist and coach. Hear stories and strategies from folks like you and me. You don't have to mask, you don't have to hide, and let yourself be seen. ADHD rewired. It's more than just a podcast. ADHD rewired. It's coaching and community. We're wired for connection. You are not alone. ADHD rewired. Find us at ADHDrewired.com for the links and more. Starting is the hardest part. So let's get started.
Real quick before we get started, for those of you who are interested in our summer coaching groups, we just added more opportunities for you to join. Groups now starting June 18th and 19th.
ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Groups. CoachingRewired.com. CoachingRewired.com. Pre-register today. CoachingRewired.com.
Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today's guest is Alyece Smith. Alyece is a business coach, TEDx speaker, and founder of Socially Awesome with an AU, AUSOME, where she helps ADHD entrepreneurs build simple systems that actually work with their brains. As a mom of 3 and an autism advocate, she brings a real-life experience into her work, blending strategy with honesty. Alyece is the host of a podcast focused on ADHD and entrepreneurship, and the creator of programs that help women move from scattered and overwhelmed to consistent and profitable without burnout. Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's start with this. So I want to know a little bit about your story. From our discussion that we had when we had our pre-interview, you shared that you spent kind of years masking in your ADHD in corporate environments. What finally broke that pattern for you? And what changed in your business when you stopped hiding?
Yes. Okay. So for me, the pattern actually kind of broke. I was still in corporate, and in 2018, my middle child was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder.
Right.
Non-speaking, we were doing a lot of eloping. There was a lot of safety concerns. And
Okay.
so, of course, Mama Bear here, the first thing I did was I researched the whole 3-hour drive home, and then probably another 6, 7 hours when I got home, actually Googling, like, what is autism? How do I help my son with autism? Autism resources for me, like all of those things. And because there was a lot more challenges for him that maybe I didn't have, especially the non-speaking. That was very hard for us to know if he's hurting. Is he hungry? Is he just tired? Why is he crying? And so reading through this, I learned a lot more about neurodivergency as a whole. And there are some crossover symptoms. A lot of people are AU,
Yep.
ADHD. And
As
so
am I.
there's
Yep.
different things there. And I just saw somewhat of a reflection in a lot of what I was learning. Because for me, I knew I was ADHD already. I'd already been diagnosed. I'd already been on medication. But for me, it was just like, she's a little scattered. When I started reading and learning and researching for my child, obviously I put a lot more attention to it. As a parent and an adult, we always go in the back burner. And so things started to make sense. And I started to give myself a little bit more grace around, I'm not just scattered. There's a reason my brain works this way. And starting learning about the neurology behind it and the science behind it. And then from there, creating almost systems and routines for my child kind of forced me to create some for myself as well. And so there was kind of a breaking point in corporate in 2022 when, I was trying to get him speech and OT and ABA and all these therapies. We wanted early intervention. We wanted to get him as much help as he needed to be able to be as successful as he possibly could. And doing that with a 9 to 5 just wasn't working. They'd call and say, hey, we had a cancellation an hour ago. Can you be here in an hour? And I'd be in a meeting at work. And so having to turn down those options, I got to a point where I was like, I'm not putting my job in front of my child's healthcare. I don't know how I'm going to pay for his healthcare, but we will figure it out. And so I left my job in 2022 and started my business. And I immediately went into starting my business, trying to operate the same way I did in corporate. because that's what I'd done
Mhm.
for so long. I operated that way as a teenager in high school, in college. I'd
What you
masked
knew.
all of my symptoms. Yes, and I did what I knew. My symptoms just don't show anyone, keep the face on. And with that, I got to another breaking point in my business where I was just burnt out. And I was successful. I hit six figures in less than 6 months. I was
Wow.
making way more money than I made in corporate, being able to somewhat make my schedule, but, going into entrepreneurship, it's a 24/7 thing. It's very hard to have a
Uh-huh.
work-life balance. And so while I was making more money, I was burnt. I was just fat. I was ready to burn it down, go work at Walmart, like whatever I had to do. Just so I was like, can I just be a cashier? I don't even want to think anymore. I just want to scan. Like I just want something that's easy to do.
But I
And I had
remember
to
during our pre-interview, you had shared with me that you were regularly kind of working till 2 or 3 in the morning,
yeah, yeah,
trying to meet, like, all the demands of basically unrealistic
yeah,
client expectations.
yeah,
What
yeah.
what were you telling yourself, sort of in those moments that kinda kept you stuck in that cycle, continuing to do that pattern?
I needed to learn more, and I love to learn. I mean, I'm the person that I hear something on TV and I immediately pick up my phone to Google, "Is that true? I need to fact check that." Like, I love to learn, but sometimes those research rabbit holes, 90% of the time probably, they're more of a distraction.
Yeah.
And so I would sit at my computer all day working my business while my kids were at school, which is what the ideal life looked like. But honestly, throughout that day, I would get distracted by saying, "Oh, I need to go research what I'm doing for this client so I could be better at it. I could be better at it." And second guessing myself and over delivering and over promising and people pleasing. And
And
so
what
then
what this service that you were delivering?
I did done for you social media marketing. That's
Okay.
what I did in corporate, and so that was the easiest thing for me to plug and play. And when you're doing a done for you service, people are like, "We're paying you to do something, like,
Yeah.
come on." And I struggled with boundaries. I'd always struggled with boundaries. So I'd have a client that would text me at 4:30, "Hey, can we get this on our Facebook, like, yesterday?" "Oh, yeah, hold on one second. I can get that done." And so boundaries was the real reason, but not just boundaries with my clients, boundaries with myself. And so not being able to control my schedule, getting distracted all day kept me up till 3 delivering the work I was actually getting paid for. And then when clients saw me emailing them at 2 and 3 AM, they're like, "Oh, she works 24/7." And it just got worse. That's when I learned Gmail allows you to schedule emails for tomorrow.
Yes.
And I started using that feature quickly. And I mean, at one point, the boundary setting got so bad that before I hired an assistant, I faked that I had an assistant. Like I would literally reply to emails and be like, "Yes, I will let Alyece know this message," and I would because I sucked so bad at setting those boundaries,
Mhm.
and even though my contract had it in there, these are my business hours, "Yeah, let me do that for you real quick," and it was just this fear of rejection that I
Let me
lived in.
ask you this, when you were operating that way, I think, probably part of the motivation was you're wanting to deliver excellence.
Yeah, always.
Were you?
I'm gonna sound like an ass right now. Can I say the A word?
Yeah.
Um, my work is superior. I mean, I will say that. Like, I will boast to myself, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. So, to them, yes, I was. But
Okay.
was I happy with it? No.
And
I
that was my
thought it
next
could be better.
question. Was it worth it?
I learned a lot. So,
Okay.
yeah, I it was because I got very quick. I say quick. About a year in, I was like, I'm about to put up a cement wall of boundaries. And so, once I burnt out and was ready to quit, and my husband was like, "Is that really what you wanna do?" Like, he and I had a very he called me out and he's like, You're just terrible at being your own boss. Like, you gotta be an actual boss. You just became an employee for your own company." And
Mhm.
so when he kinda called me out some, I became a brick wall of boundaries. And I am very quick to say, "That's not in our contract, but I'm happy to invoice you for that." Or
Oh, I love
or,
that. That's
or,
great.
"Hey," or, "I don't have any availability this week, but I'd be happy to go ahead and get you on the schedule for next week." Like, I so It was worth it because I learned boundaries, and then I've started to kind of teach my kids some of those boundary setting as well with, like, friends, because that was I let friends take advantage of me as a child and as a teen and even in college because I have just always had that fear of rejection, wanting to be accepted, and people pleasing, and so I didn't have boundaries even then.
Let me ask you this. So I think you and I think both see how masking and people pleasing absolutely drive burnout.
Yeah.
What were some of the early warning signs that you saw in yourself, or maybe even if you've seen this in other people as well, to kind of connecting those dots and seeing those patterns?
Mhm.
What are the early warning signs, like for you, anyways, before you crashed?
Before I crashed, yeah. Um, for me particular, definitely avoidance was the number one. Like, I would just, I almost for some days would feel physically ill.
Hmm.
Like, my stomach would turn, I just don't wanna even open my computer today, I was just avoiding it at all costs. I was doing things I hate. I was scrubbing toilets over opening my laptop because I just wanted to ghost. Um, I even had a lot of fatigue, unexpected fatigue, like, "I'm just so tired today, I can't do it." And, with dopamine regulation in our brains, that's not uncommon, but for me, it was pretty uncommon because I enjoyed what I was doing. I
Hmm.
would get dopamine by working, I loved it. Um, in other people, I've also seen where they pivot when all the signs show it's working, they pivot. And so I'm a very gut-led person, so I will never tell another entrepreneur to not pivot if they feel it in their gut, like, "This feels aligned for me," because for me, alignment and clarity are everything, because that's what builds confidence and conviction. And there have been times in my business where I've pivoted too quickly because I either got bored or I was scared of success or, fearful of not being successful, so I went and did something easier. I mean, there's been points of that. But I've watched a lot of my clients that I've had conversations with them about what they were doing and why we started working together, and they would go rebuild a Brooklyn Bridge just to avoid finishing this one thing they've been working on, and all the signs are showing it's going to be amazing just because of the fear of putting it out there, and they feel so exhausted and so burnt out from the worry and the fear, like, the
Hmm.
mental capacity of it.
So what do you think for you? Because you said that like sometimes pivoting is just procrastination, sometimes pivoting
Mhm,
is a really like good move. What's
mhm.
like, how do you determine that for yourself?
For me, I have to learn to sit with it a lot of times. The pivots I've made that have been quick, because I am an impulsive person, so I take quick action. I mean, I had a conversation with my nonprofit board the other day about building an app, and I was building it before I got home that night. Like, I was ready. I'm a quick action taker, and that's helped me and it's hurt me sometimes.
Yeah.
But for me, I've had to learn to sit with it. I have a 48-hour rule. Before I'm
Okay.
gonna burn something down, I need to sit with it for 48 hours. And, if I am still fired up 48 hours later about it, then it's probably a good move. If it's aligned with me. A lot of the pivots I've made that have not been the right have either been chasing money or shiny objects.
Yeah.
If it my gut feels like I am passionate about this, that's a good pull.
Mm.
Because for me, that's when our hyper focus works best, is when we're passionate about something. That's when we do our best work. That's when we're fueling dopamine constantly.
Yes.
And that's your zone of genius, when you never feel like you're working. And so for me, I would rather work on a passion project forever and not make a single dollar because I feel aligned, I feel clear, I feel confident in what I'm doing.
And would you say that for that burnout for you, like, is when even the things you're passionate about, like, there's still like you can't even get a spark going for action?
If you can't get a spark going for action, you're not passionate about it. If you are truly passionate about it, you can't stop thinking about it. It's almost obsessive. I mean, my husband gets on to me constantly because he's like, "You're working 24/7." But now that I run a nonprofit for children on the spectrum, the founder and president of that, and I have been speaking at a lot of engagements recently about my own neurodivergency and my frameworks, and now that I am working in a space that is serving neurodivergent children and neurodivergent adults, and I've brought it full circle for me, I can't stop working. I mean, I'm in the shower like,
How long have
"Alexa,
you,
make a note."
let me ask, how long have you been at like doing both of these things?
Since last January is when I made the pivot in my own I kind of came out of and started talking about my own ADHD. Prior to that, I hid it. I mean, I was afraid no one would hire me. No one would want me, want to be my client because of that. So since last January, a year and a half, that's pretty long for me. I have never kept a car that long, so I could tell you as passion. I started the nonprofit. We launched in June of last year, so we're almost at a year with that, but I started the preparation and forming the board last February. When I made that pivot in January, I immediately said, "You know what? We're going all in." I pulled the nonprofit off my vision board. We went and I've been doing
And
both at the
when
same
you
time.
move, you move.
I do. I do, and one, if I don't move quickly, I will forget. I mean, that's why I have systems in place to help me. I will. But two, I momentum is what fuels me. When things slow down, I create chaos. I always have. I mean, when things get slow, I will create chaos, and I don't need to create chaos. I'd rather live in good chaos than something I created for no reason. So
How do you
I'm
know when you're getting like fatigued? Do you like do you ignore that? Do you push through that? Like,
I I build rest in now because I've gotten so good at setting those
good.
boundaries, so I don't often see the fatigue that I used to. Yes, there are days where I am like, "Today is just not the day," and if
Okay.
so, I have what I call my minimum work day, my minimum, and it's usually, like, skimming my emails just to see if there's anything urgent, which, let's be honest, if it was urgent, they're not in my emails, but I skim it, let me just double check, um, and that's it that's, like, it, unless there's something that has a serious deadline. But for me, I build a lot of rest in. I almost pretty much completely unplug off social media at least Saturday and Sunday. My daughter plays travel ball, so I'm usually at the ball field anyway.
Cool.
I know it's hard for our clients and our audiences to understand that things can be pre-scheduled. Um, and I don't apologize. When I come back in and I message them on Monday, I'm not like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I took me 2 days." I'm like, "Yo, I'm not in here on the weekends. Happy to see you." Like I don't apologize for that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I build that in. And if I took my work week down to a 4-day work week, also last January, so a year and a half ago. And so Fridays is when I really do a lot of my errands. I work a lot on the nonprofit that day, which just is good energy, good vibes for me.
Mhm.
And so and the way I've structured my week out, Mondays are admin, so I can stay in my pajamas. I'm just doing all the things my CPA says I have to do, all that kind of stuff. Tuesday, Thursdays are calls, Wednesdays, content creation, podcast recordings, whatever. But I'm not doing the same thing every day either. So I'm not getting in a point where I'm like, "Ugh, I just did this yesterday." So it's about understanding what your brain needs to stay focused and fueled and building in that rest.
That really sounds like you've really like harnessed the idea that getting shit done is way more about energy management than it is about time
Yeah,
management.
and that's the whole thing. It's about managing your energy, not your tasks. Because I could tell you I could do more in 4 hours than most people can do in 4 days.
Yeah.
When my focus is on, when my energy is there, I don't need someone to motivate me. I need my own internal momentum, and that is driven by knowing if I put 4 hours in right now and I lock in, which usually turns into 6 to 8 hours because I have time blindness, but that's a different conversation. But when I'm locked in, okay, when I'm locked in, I don't need anyone to motivate me. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times what I see from entrepreneurs is they're looking for this like external motivation. That's why they join these containers. That's why they hire coaches and they buy all these courses. They're looking for external motivation. It's great to have someone tell you that for most of us, you're doing a great job, but I don't even like praise. Praise is awkward to me. Like, I don't need you to tell me I'm doing a good job. I know I'm doing a good job. And so a lot of entrepreneurs rely on motivation and willpower, and I'll just remember to do that. ADHDpreneurs, from what I have seen, work better with systems and structure, automation.
Yeah.
And without those, you're kind of just winging it every day.
Is there one like maybe a tool that you use to help develop systems or automation in your business that you're like, I don't know how I would do this without it?
Yeah. Yeah. So systems, I don't know. I'm kind of getting into Claude right now. I'm not even gonna lie. Claude Cowork, I've been learning that a little bit. But for me, definitely the way I manage my calendar, manage my schedule. Um, Obviously, like I said, having specific days for specific things, it helps me from context switching so much. It
Hmm.
helps me from getting bored with what I'm doing. Um, and so I've kind of created a system on how I manage that. I've got specific days and then specific weeks. So the first week of the month, I spend that Wednesday doing content creation. The second week of the month, I spend that Wednesday recording my podcast. The third Wednesday, like I have it nailed down that
So
way.
let me ask you this because I'm always curious. I know batching does work, or theming your day or your week does work for many ADHDers. The thing that always like makes me nervous about it is what if I'm just having a bad brain day on the day
Yeah.
I have set aside that I only do, let's say, once a week or once a month. How do you deal with that?
It's not set in stone, right? I run this ship. I do.
There you
And
go.
Fridays are my personal days. So there have been times where today's a great example. Right before you and I started recording, my kids had a field trip. So I did not do any of the things that I would have normally done today. So I've got Friday, I could sub it out, or a lot of times I've gotten to a point where I overestimate how much time things take me because of my time blindness.
How
So
much do you
tomorrow
overestimate?
depends on the task,
Okay.
like if I have a 30-minute call with a client, I usually will block myself for a full hour. Not that we talk for a full hour, but usually I do it. I still struggle. If they're a paying client, I still struggle with cutting them off. Like, yo, it's been 30 minutes. Okay, you're out. I give like a 10-minute leeway, 15
Yeah.
minutes max. If we're really deep in the conversation and I want to have the conversation, I'm not going to cut somebody off.
Are you
That's
meeting
just
with your
not,
clients on Zoom?
yeah, neat.
You ever use the
Google Meet.
time the timer feature?
I don't think Google Meet has one. I will find that though. I
It,
bet there's like a Chrome extension or something.
well, you can also use there's like virtual cameras, like Mannycam is one of them where you can actually like overlay a
Ooh.
timer. And I always tell my clients like it's for me, and it's probably I'm guessing
Also
this
for
is
you.
too.
Yeah.
Right.
But I also know that after I get off a call, I need a minute, right?
Yeah.
When you're having that conversation, even if it's a great conversation and you're really into it, you just poured energy out. And so
Yes.
I need to get up, I need to get a bottle of water, I need to go to the bathroom, I need to walk around, stretch for a second
Right.
before I get back into the next task. You have to have a transition period. And so I usually block my calendar for a full hour for that transition period. Same thing with like, afternoon tasks. I have like a lull that hits around 1:30 or 2, and
Hmm.
then about 5 o'clock, when it's dinner time, I start getting another zip of energy. And so for me, during that downtime, I usually will get up, I'll move laundry, I'll just do some things I don't even have to think about. And I have a transition period in there. And that's just I've learned that by studying my own energy patterns.
One
And
of the
that's
thi one of the shifts that I've actually made, as I've been, working through a lot of my own burnout over the last couple of years, is, I've been shifting a lot of my business stuff, so I'm doing a lot more one-on-one stuff,
yeah.
compared to group. And, so when I used to do one-on-one stuff, and I think a lot of therapists are sort of like this, where it's you see the client for 45 minutes, you have 15 minutes in between, next client, and
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
things that I was realizing that when I had days that where I was basically back-to-back meetings all day, by the end of the day, my brain just felt like shit.
Yes.
Like, it was
Yes.
just, like,
Yes.
foggy, and it felt like an engine trying to move without any oil, right? It
Right.
was just like And so one of the sort of micro changes that I've made to my schedule is 30 minutes now in between meetings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that has been it's been huge. Like my goal is to like I don't want to end any day feeling mentally exhausted because I think that I had
Yeah.
done that for years and years and years, which compounded so hard, which put me in such like for gave me this burnout for years. Right.
Yeah.
Because I was just ignoring that and just thinking, yep, that's just what I do. I gotta push through, gotta push through. Because that's I want to prove to, I don't
Yeah.
know, whoever.
When you
But
start resenting what you're doing, when you get to that
yes.
burnout, you start resenting the job, right? And so, like I said, when I first started a year into it, I mean, I was like, what are we buying, man? Like, I had more money than I'd ever made in my life. I never thought I would make that much money. And I'm like, vacation club, y'all want it? Mom bought it. You want this? Mom bought it. You want this? Mom bought it. But
You get a
I
car.
was
You get a car.
I know, right? Oprah over here. But I wasn't even emotionally available to enjoy any of it.
Mm.
And then about a year and a half into it, when I realized that I can't keep going like this, like my body physically can't keep going like this, I started being resentful of my business. And I started
And you
finding,
shifted something then.
yeah, yeah. And so I did. I shifted then. And then about a year in after that, I shifted again because, I actually had a client that asked me, we were doing a one-on-one because in one of my group programs, you get a certain amount of one-on-ones throughout the 6 months. And she asked me, she's like, "I've never seen anybody, you know, break things down the way you break things down." And I said, "I don't know, maybe it's my ADHD." And that was kind of the moment for me. And she was like, "You're what? There's no way. You're so organized. You're so put together." And
I
I was
often get
like,
those responses, and it's like, "Oh, honey, let me be real clear with you.
I
Like,
know. I was like, "Girl, you have no clue, right?"
rest."
So I was like, you don't understand how much energy it takes for me to look this put together. Like I am exhausting so much
And that's
energy.
masking. Like, that's masking.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I sat with that comment for probably 3 or 4 months. I mentioned it to my
Mm.
therapist. I mentioned it to my husband. And the more it just I ruminated on it, right? I replayed it over and over. I'm like, I can't believe she really didn't people don't really see it, do they? I must be really good at hiding it. I thought about it. Finally, one day, I made a Facebook post that was like, "You really don't understand what ADHD actually looks like in females." And I just kinda broke it down like an educational type post, and the amount of women in the comments that were like, "Me too, me too, me too, me too, me too." And so then I sat with that for a while, and that's when I told my husband, I was like, "This just feels right." Like, if you have ADHD, you're what, 5 times more likely to be an entrepreneur anyway, and people don't understand it. And yeah, just that one comment changed everything for me. And ever since then, I feel free because now that it's out there and everyone knows I have ADHD, then when I do something, they're like, "Man, you're super good." They're not like, "Oh, that's pretty good for someone with ADHD." So it's like, and I love being an ADHD keynote speaker because they don't expect me to stay on track. They really don't.
That's great.
They
Speaking
got it.
of, we're gonna take a really quick break
Okay.
to plug some stuff that we're working on here at ADHD Rewired, and then we will
Perfect.
be right back. Before we get back to the episode, I want to share two things with you. The first is about our upcoming coaching groups, and the other is about a neurodivergent LGBTQ plus pride event coming up that I'm participating in. So first up, ADHD Rewired's coaching and accountability groups are still open for registration. We actually moved the start date back 2 weeks, which means there's still time to complete pre-registration and join us this season. So if you were interested, but you thought you missed the window, you haven't. As of this release, our next registration event is on this Friday and next Friday. That's May 29th and June 5th at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern. And one more on Tuesday, June 2nd at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 Eastern. Pre-registration is required before attending. This season, we have 2 sections. The morning section with Brian Entler begins Friday, June 19th and runs through August 14th. His section meets Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. The evening section is led by Kristen Martz, and that begins on Thursday, June 18th and runs through August 13th. It meets Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. The full schedule, including extended sessions and accountability team details, is available at coachingrewired.com. Our coaching and accountability groups are an 8-week live coaching program for adults with ADHD who want structure, support, accountability, and help turning good intentions into actual action. We meet 3 times a week for coaching, planning, accountability, and support. And starting week 3, members also meet in smaller accountability teams, so the support continues between sessions. This isn't another self-paced course to forget about and then feel bad about later. It's a real live support group experience designed for ADHD brains. Because for a lot of ADHDers, the problem isn't that we don't know what we want to do. It's that gap between intention and action that can just feel enormous. And trying to cross that gap alone can leave you feeling stuck, frustrated, and exhausted. These groups are designed to help you build practical systems, get consistent support, and keep coming back to what matters, even when life gets messy. We've been running these groups since 2014, and more than 1,200 people have gone through the program, and we have an over 99% completion rate, which is pretty darn amazing. If you've been thinking, I probably need something like this, but I just don't know if I'm ready, let me just offer you this gently. Ready is not always a feeling that shows up first. Sometimes ready is what happens after you take the first step.
ADHD Rewired coaching and accountability groups. CoachingRewired.com. CoachingRewired.com. Pre-register today. CoachingRewired.com.
And secondly, I want to invite you to something special happening next week. For the 3rd year in a row, I will be part of Shimmer's Neurodivergent Pride panel, a free online Pride Month event on Zoom, bringing together neurodivergent voices from the LGBTQ plus community to talk about identity, stigma, masking, belonging, and what it means to build more inclusive spaces. As a bisexual, queer, ADHD human, this is a conversation I'm really looking forward to. Because Pride isn't only about celebration, it's about visibility. It's about being able to say, this is who I am. It's about getting to be more of who we are out loud. For many of us, queerness and neurodivergence have both involved some version of masking, translating ourselves, or wondering which parts of us were just too much. This panel is a chance to talk honestly about those intersections and to celebrate the creativity, complexity, resilience, and joy that live there too. You can register for the Neurodivergent Pride panel at ADHDrewired.com/pride. That's ADHDrewired.com/pride. And finally, support for this podcast comes from Adult Study Hall, ADHD Rewired's virtual co-working community. Learn more at adultstudyhall.com. All right, now back to the conversation. All right, we are back. A few more questions before we kind of start to bring this one in for a landing. I think that you talk a little bit differently about sort of inconsistency than maybe a lot of other people might.
Yeah.
What do you think that maybe people are getting wrong when we basically say like ADHD, like entrepreneurs, they're so inconsistent? Like, what do you think
Yeah.
we're getting wrong about that?
Honestly, it's again back to the motivation like we talked about earlier. Dopamine runs the show. Okay, you can Google it, you can look it up. There are studies from Harvard, there are studies from the CDC, like whatever source you want to pick, they're out there. Our brains run on dopamine. And so people tend to think that we're scattered, and you might even tell yourself that because you probably heard that a lot growing up, right? I'm just so scattered, or oh, look, a squirrel. I hate that one, but that's, you hear it all the time.
Yeah, my
And
thing
it's
growing up, my diagnosis was lazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so we often believe that about ourselves because that's what we've been told. But it's 9 times out of 10, not that we're scattered, we're bored. It is boredom. There is neurology behind it. Science proves it that our brains are chronically bored and understimulated. And
And
so
I
that's
don't know if you saw the study like about a year ago it came out that showed that they it put ADHDers on was the ADHDers general population. It was a study that looked at under fMRI scan that showed that boredom looks like pain. So it
yes.
must have been an ADHD study.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
like,
And
that's validating because yeah, it is
exactly.
painful.
So when your brain registers as pain, it's going to try to avoid it. And so that's why you feel scattered or appear scattered to other people because you try to go find something that's exciting that's going to give you that dopamine. And that's why you end up starting strong a lot of time and then our brain checks out, right? We buy the calendar, we write in it for 3 days and then it goes in the drawer with the other 50 calendars we own. It's just how it is. And so it's not that we don't care, it's that our brain just kind of stopped paying us to do what it wanted us to do. And so we're really good at starting, but finishing, it takes sustained attention and it's delayed reward and it's boring and it's repetitive. And that's what we struggle with.
You know, it's
And
funny because
so
the intro of my podcast is starting is the hardest part,
it
and
is.
I've always thought like I should have my outro be something about like, well, after we start, finishing is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes. And there's so many pieces that go into this, right? Because another thing is like decision fatigue, right? Decision overload makes our brain shut down. That's why almost every day you're going to see me wearing the same thing. I have about 20 t-shirts with my logo on them and, jeans or leggings. It's like I have like my own uniform
That's great.
because
That's smart.
if I have to go into my closet and pick something out to wear today, it's going to be pajamas. That's what's going to be. And so entrepreneurs with ADHD aren't inconsistent. They're undersupported, they're overstimulated, they're running businesses just with systems that don't fit their brain. They're buying all these courses and trying to learn and going down these research rabbit holes and YouTube University, trying to understand, what a work day looks like
Yeah,
or how they should be doing this or how they should be doing that. And what they should be doing is paying more attention to their energy patterns so that they can build
so important.
systems that are custom to them. Yeah,
So
because you have
important.
spark times. Your brain has natural energy peaks, okay? It's called your chronotype, and it's a lot more than just being a night owl or, a morning
Yeah,
person. And I mean, there's again studies around your chronotypes. When you're working during your chronotype, you're like up to 74% more productive. And so you don't need to work 8 hours a day. You need to work
right.
during your chronotype and your peak time, your spark times.
Yeah,
And when you're not in your spark time, you need to do something that you don't even have to think about, like folding laundry, you
agreed.
know? We often waste our best energy times doing things that don't take any brain power at all because that's just how it's always been done, right? In corporate, you're taught to first thing you do at your desk in the morning, you sit down with your coffee, you check your email. Well, then you have just unloaded everyone else's problem on you
Well, I always say the email is
and
a
your
list of other
best energy.
people's priorities.
Exactly, exactly, and so do you really need your best brain power for that? No. That shit can wait until you're exhausted and you're like, "Okay, I'm just gonna nope, Tim, not doing that, delete, unsubscribe," like, that's something you could do on the toilet. It does not have to be your best energy hours, like, it's not, and so it's just because that's how it's always been done.
Yeah, yeah. So you have a book that I think just recently came out.
Yeah.
Want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, flow first thinking is my framework that I operate on every day. And flow stands for F is find your spark times. That's what we were just talking about.
Yep.
When you know when your spark times are, you can plan your schedule around it. That's why I work the way I work. Monday's this, Tuesday's this, Wednesday's this. If I did calls Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I wouldn't have the energy to do calls Wednesday and Thursday. I'd be out.
Yeah.
L is for linking boring with stimulating. So, a lot of times when you're avoiding things, it's because they're boring and I don't wanna fold laundry. I want someone else to fold my laundry. But unfortunately, I gotta wash like 3 loads a day with all these kids, and I don't have anyone that's volunteering to do it. So, there are ways called temporal building that you probably already do and you don't even realize you're doing it, like watching Netflix while folding laundry or listening to a podcast while you're cleaning or driving or whatever to get you through that boring thing. But you
Mhm.
may not be using that process for things in your business, like organizing your receipts or things that you just keep avoiding. So I talk a lot about there's different ways to linking an urgent task or what feels urgent and to stimulate your brain to get through that. O is organize your overflow. So those shiny objects that distract us, or you get the best ideas when you're sitting still, it just in the shower,
Sure. Yeah.
right before you go to bed, that's where they come, and then you immediately go start them, and you go hard for 12 hours, and then you stop. It may be you probably have $1,000,000 ideas in your notes on your phone, but we've never executed on them because after it was over. So I have like a parking lot system where I drop all my ideas and it's built in my schedule to go through it and review it. Sometimes they're dumb stuff like water the plants. Okay. But if it comes through my brain, I got to get it out. If not, I'm going to
Yeah.
keep thinking about it. And so I brain dump every morning. I put it in my parking lot and then I review my parking lot and either delegate, delete, go through the system. And then W is work your week around your peaks. So when you know your spark
Work
times,
your week around your peak. Okay.
yeah, when you know your spark times, the F, when you know what you avoid doing and how you can stimulate your brain to finish it or find someone else to do it, either way works. And then you know how to organize your overflow of thoughts so that you can focus. Then you build your schedule like I did mine. And it looks very different for every one of my clients, but I worked with someone in corporate and used this system, and he actually took it to his boss, got approval to kind of make some shifts on his schedule, and they allowed him to micro test it. Like, "Hey, if you can prove results, we're good with it." He saved him over $300,000 in company waste in the first quarter of him just being able to make changes to his schedule,
Well,
just being able to work his week around his peaks. Over
not too
300 grand.
shabby.
No, not too shabby at all. So, it's what I did my TEDx on, but obviously a TEDx is like an appetizer because they're like 11 minutes you're off the stage. So the book actually teaches you my framework and goes through all different scenarios because it's not just for entrepreneurs. If you can get your boss on board to allow you to be a little more flexible, I think that's a really big missed opportunity as some of these bigger companies, they're wasting their best employees because
Mhm.
of the micromanagement and not allowing them to be a little more flexible.
So let me ask you this. So as you've been sort of testing out your system with clients,
Mhm.
um, what do you think, or where do people kind of maybe get certain pieces of it wrong when they're trying to apply something like this?
The F, always. The F.
And tell us
It
what the F was again, because that was like 3 minutes ago when we've all forgotten.
find your spark times. So, a lot of people either misunderstand what their spark time is. It's not always when you have the most energy. It's when your brain's most alert and most focused. And so the only way to find that is to really do like a time audit and track because I'm pretty wired up at 8 p.m. But that's body energy. That's not I'm not focused. According to the all the laundry still sitting on my couch and dishwasher that's half loaded and all the things I try to do with all the extra energy. But understanding that and then breaking the pattern because they've been doing the same schedule for so many or trying to for so many years. Check the email, then,
Yep.
talk to this client, and then this making changes to their schedule is uncomfortable a lot of times, especially if you have to set boundaries, right? When I had to go and change my Calendly link to where people couldn't book calls with me anymore. No, I don't book more than 3 calls a day. That's my max for the day.
Yep. That's great.
So, when I had to go put those settings in and somebody's like, "I can't book with you in for another 2 weeks," I had to be like, "That's my next availability."
Right.
That's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so getting past that F is usually the hardest part or saying no to something, saying no to like my spark time's between 10 and 2 personally. And so for me, being able to my grandma calling and I'd be like, "Hey, I'll call you after 2." Like, me telling my grandma that, she's like, "Well, why can't you talk now?" And I'm like, "I'm in the zone, man. I can't. I'll call you later. I love you. Bye." Like, setting those boundaries or getting out of those routines and habits is the hardest part. Yeah.
So let me ask you one more question here. If because I want listeners to get something maybe very sort of concrete and actionable to wrap us up with. So, if someone's listening and they're maybe feeling overwhelmed or behind or stuck, what do you think is like one just really small shift that it can make that could actually move the needle? And I know it's kind of an abstract question and it's much easier to apply
Yeah.
for a specific situation, but if you're able to kind of zoom out and with your ability for kind of pattern recognition of with other ADHD entrepreneurs. Like, what's one small shift?
Actionable item they could do, I would recommend a brain dump immediately. I personally love a good voice message. Some of them in my phone are like 15 minutes long. I'm not gonna lie, I just ramble. And then listen back to that and see what doesn't feel good to you on there. Not like what is something you don't want to do. Like no, again, no one wants to do laundry, like literally. But what doesn't feel good to you? Is there a phone call that you just do not want to make? Is there a crucial conversation you just don't want to have? Is there, something in there that just makes your stomach turn when you listen back to it? Because your influx in your voice tells you a lot. I recommend a brain dump every day. So I drop my kids off at school and I've got about a 5-minute drive back from the school line to my house. I just let my voice memo run the whole time. And I'm just like, call this person, do this, do that, email this person, sweep that goldfish crumb off the floor that's been there for 4 days, whatever. Like I let it all out. And does it mean it gets done? No. But it also means I don't sit at my desk going, "Oh, that goldfish crumb is still there." I don't think about it, but I often will listen back to them, and
You ever plug
especially if
it
I
into
have
like AI?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I
Yeah.
actually use the app called Voice Pen, 10 out of 10 recommend. Of course, I think iPhone actually will do it now too, where you can get the transcript
Yeah.
from regular voice memos, but Voice Pen will actually, like, with the click of a button, turn it into, an action item list, or, it will give me, like, high priorities, or it's
Nice.
it's pretty freaking awesome.
Voice
It's
pin.
Voice Pen, yep, and one of the reasons I love it, I'll plug this in here, it I can actually so I'm a YouTube universityer, and a lot of times I'll wanna watch this video, but it's 30 minutes long, and I'm like, "I really don't need to." You could plug that link in, and it will transcribe the video and then give you, like, the bullet points of what
Oh,
they
that's
covered in
great.
the video, the links to what they recommended, and I'm like,
That's great.
"Boom, done." Podcast, all of that, it does all that. But
I don't know if
anyway,
you've seen that Apple Podcasts are now are able it, like, automatically extracts links or resources mentioned, and it will actually plug it into the your podcast, like, on the app itself.
I have not. When did
Yeah,
that happen?
I
Like a
think in the
recent
last, like,
update?
month or 2, like, and if you mention other podcasts, it will show up, like, in there as other podcasts that
Huh,
were
I'm gonna
mentioned.
look now. It's not I listen to podcasts a lot of times on my computer, on the Apple
Okay.
on my computer in the podcast. So I don't know, maybe my computer needs an update, but I'm gonna go
Yeah, I
take
don't
a
know
look.
if it does that on the computer, if it's just the phone.
Yeah.
Not sure.
But I would listen back to your own voice and what doesn't feel good to you, like in your gut, "I don't like the way this sounds." Feel good to you. And then sit with that for 48 hours and make a decision. Whether it's something you need to bless and release, whether it is something you need to find someone else to handle, if it's but there's very often something you're putting pressure on yourself to do because someone else either made you feel that way or you weren't as open with them. When you learn more about your brain and how you operate, the conversations you can have with people are more informed. And this
Mhm.
is one of the things I teach my students a lot, but um, it's a lot easier for me to communicate with people now because I know how I operate. And so rather than feeling like I'm being harsh by saying, "No, I don't have a time available for the next 2 weeks," it's I understand why I don't have a time available. And so I'm more confident saying that. And so
Mm.
go learn as much as you can about why your brain operates the way it does, because you'll be a lot more confident about making those changes. And you won't put that blame on yourself. You won't internalize that.
Can you leave, people with your website and any other way that people can
Yeah.
reach out to you?
Of course. So, sociallyawesome.com, and that's AUSOME. It's a name play on being an autism mom. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. Please don't DM me on TikTok because their DMs are terrible. Okay. If you wanna chat, and I do want to chat with you, please reach out Facebook or Instagram because TikTok's DMs are just not it. All right. But I would love to connect with anyone, get a copy of the book, let me know what you think about it. It's full of resources, and I've got trackers and all kinds of resources to help you implement my flow first thinking system in it because
Cool.
I don't want you just to have a concept. I'm a tactical person. I'm very much tell me what to do so I could do it. And so I want to equip you with everything you need to make those changes because it's been a huge piece of my life the last 2 years, and it's brought a lot of confidence and conviction into my business, into me as a mom, into me as a wife, and yeah, I want that for everyone. That brings more
Mhm.
happiness.
Alyece Smith, thank you so much. This was a fun
Um,
conversation, and I hope
Thank you
that
for having me.
yeah, absolutely. And maybe I'll come on to your show in the near
I hope
future.
so. I hope so.
So well, thank you, and we'll be in touch, and hope that listeners, you got a lot out of this, and thanks.
Perfect. Stay awesome.
You got 43 tabs open in your mind. A planner you loved for a week last time. You mean to start, you really do. You had good intentions but didn't follow through. It's not just you. This group gives structure, not pressure. Accountability, not shame. A group that helps you do the thing instead of overthinking once again. You've been meaning to decide since, honestly, who knows when. So come see how group coaching can work for your ADHD brain. Instead of bookmarking this again, registration events this week. CoachingRewired.com.